I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, NASDAQ, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now, I do post these videos up weekly, so if you want to be notified when I do, consider following and subscribing. And then also, given that it's tax season, Free Tax USA, link down below. It's the exact same as TurboTax in terms of software and the settings, how it goes through the questions. The only difference is they don't charge you for the software. They don't charge you for federal filing, which TurboTax doesn't charge for federal filing, but you have to buy the software, right? And then in terms of state filing, there's a $15 charge versus TurboTax's $20 charge if you file early and $25 if you file later on. Prices might have increased for TurboTax a little bit more. They tend to do so, but it's the exact same thing. And I've used them in the past in terms of comparison, in terms of how much tax refund you do get. And it gave you the exact same tax refund. So if you do use the link down below, it does support the channel. Thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. No extra charge to you. You get the same charge if you don't use the link. The only thing is it does support the channel a little bit. Now, in terms of investor sentiments, it has decreased the bullish sentiment overall. Lately, it's dropped down to 19.4% versus historical average at 37.5%. And the bearish sentiment has increased substantially to 60.6% versus historical average at 31%, marking a one-year bearish high overall for this week as well. So some interesting stuff overall. In terms of the charts, quick high level, basically the 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month are showing upside. So we might see a little bit of an upswing, but ultimately with the 1 year, 5 year, and all chart for the whole entire market, it's showing predominantly downside coming still. We're in the downside / more is coming, but I'm going to go over that. Going over the economic calendars just quickly and then going to go over the technicals. So the one thing to note is on Friday, March 7th, Jerome Powell will be speaking at 12:30 p.m. On the Friday, March 7th. And then in terms of basically just quick run through for the economic calendar, on Monday, March 3rd, we have S&P final U.S. manufacturing PMI, we have construction spending, we have ISM manufacturing, we have St. Louis Fed President Musalem speak, and we have auto sales, all before 1 p.m., except for the auto sales. It's for the month of February, but we don't know. It's to be announced when it comes out. On Tuesday, March 4th, we have New York Fed President Musalem speak, and we have Richmond Fed President Barkin speak. Then on Wednesday, March 5th, we have ADP employment numbers. We have S&P final U.S. service PMI, factory orders, ISM services, Fed Beige Book. And then on March 6th, we have initial jobless claims, U.S. productivity final, U.S. trades deficit, wholesale inventories, Fed Governor Christopher Waller speak, Atlanta Fed President Bostic speak. And then on March 7th, we have U.S. job reports, so those data points will be important. Previously, it was 143,000. This time around, expecting 160,000 for the month of February. U.S. unemployment rate, which was previously 4%. This time around, expecting 4.1%. U.S. hourly wages year over year. Fed Governor Michelle Bowman speak. New York Fed President Williams speak. Fed Governor Adriana Kloger speak. And then again at 12:30 p.m., mind you, Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaks, and then consumer credit at 3 p.m. for month of January. Now, in terms of the charts, like I stated, the S&P, NASDAQ, and Dow Jones are showing basically all the exact same thing in terms of 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month potential, like going uptrend for the most part. But the 1 month, 1 year, 5 year, and all chart are showing continuation of the downside ultimately. So I'm going to be looking at ETF SPY, ETF for the S&P 500, exact same thing, just different ratio. And you can see right about here, the 1 month chart, yes, in terms of the MACD line is showing downside, but in the bearish movement, right? So potentially coming down to the downside. The only thing is though, it has crossed the 50-day, 100-day, and 200-day moving average. And in my opinion, I think if we were to dip down, we would come back retesting the 200-day and then go continue to the upside, because if you look at the 3 month, it's in the bullish movement, potentially slow down, but is also on the 100-day moving average as well. So I believe the 200-day and 100-day moving averages of the respective charts could provide potential support to continuation to the upside. 6 month chart shows strong bullish movement overall and on the 50-day moving average. So they're all on the moving averages, potential bounce offs. But ultimately, with the 1 year right about here, bearish movement, yes, technically you could think it's going to be arching up, but the 5 year is still strong to the downside with the bearish movement overall, strong continuation, volume increase to selling. It could be continued to the downside ultimately still. All chart is arching down, yes, in the bullish movement, but could be arching down ultimately to the bearish movement. I don't think that will be the case personally, because given the administration, I think overall the economic upswing will be coming overall for the most part. Just concentration is outside of the markets for the time being. But with the 1 year and 5 year, I think we still have more headwinds to come overall. But in terms of the somewhat for next few trading days or trading day, we could be seeing an upswing for the time being as it bounced a little bit, right? Now for QQQ, ETF for NASDAQ, same thing, just different ratio. If you look at the 1 month, same thing as the S&P. Right now, it is in a bullish movement technically, but it could be doing the same thing as S&P, where it's going to cross over to the bearish movement, and we're above the 50-day and 100-day moving average, heading to the 200-day moving average technically. But we could potentially rely on the 100-day moving average to provide as support, and then with the 3-month chart, bullish movement above the 50-day moving average, technically heading to the 100-day moving average, and the 6-month chart, just like the S&P, strong bullish movement, ultimately could be heading to the 50-day moving average and testing it. For QQQ, close at 508.17, $508.17, and the 50-day moving average for the 6-month chart is at 515.72 cents, so $515.72. For the S&P, just in terms of reference, we're at $594.18. Now for the Dow Jones, one thing. So for the 1 year chart, same thing as S&P, a little bit different, more stronger to the bear side. The only thing is the volume has come in for more on the buy side. And then for the 5 year chart, a bearish movement, just like the S&P, strong volume sales for the most part, and potentially continuation to the downside overall. Now, all charts, same thing. Again, even though it potentially could come down to the bearish movement, I just don't think that's going to be the case in terms of the long run for the most part, but we'll see. And then in terms of Dow Jones, shows the exact same thing. 1 month bullish movement, 3 month bullish movement, and then 6 month bullish movement. Now the Dow Jones is a little bit stronger than S&P, NASDAQ, and S&P and NASDAQ, especially with the crossing 50-day, 100-day moving averages for 1 month, 3 month crossing over the 50-day moving average, and the 6 month crossed over the 200-day moving average. So it could be strength to the upside. The only thing is, if you look at the 1 year chart, it's in the bearish movement, technically going to be arching up. You could technically expect it to actually legitimately be arching up because it's over this 200-day moving average, over the 100-day moving average, over the 50-day moving average. But then if you look at the 5 year chart, it is in the bearish movement, and it's technically not necessarily slowing down, not necessarily, but it is above all 3 moving averages at the same time. But they are quite of a distance away, so I wouldn't really necessarily rely on the moving averages being above them as a good indicator to technically being on the upside. I would more rely on the MACD line, in my opinion. Again, like always, I'm not a professional, so please do only do the due diligence and research before buying and selling. And then the all chart, showing almost the same thing, except a little bit more strength to the upside, I would say. Not necessarily upside, but more neutral versus an arch to the downside, kind of more strength to the downside indication, if that makes sense. But that's basically it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did find it more beneficial, consider dropping a like. It does help the channel, so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. And that's basically it. Thanks again for watching. Take care. God bless and peace.